Wolves are built to kill without hesitation. Fast bites to the throat, a pack working in perfect coordination, a carcass stripped down in minutes. That's the rule every nature documentary sells you. And yet, for over a decade, Yellowstone's most dominant wolf broke it completely. Wolf 21 won every single fight of his life. He never lost once. And according to field biologist Rick McIntyre, who tracked him for years inside the Yellowstone Wolf Project, he also never killed a single defeated rival. Not once, even when killing would have been the easiest thing in the world. Something was stopping him. And it wasn't fear. We'll get to why in a minute. First, the part of wolf biology that took scientists decades to actually get right. For most of the 20th century, everything people thought they knew about wolf behavior came from watching captive wolves, strangers thrown together in an enclosure, clawing for rank. That's where the whole alpha wolf idea came from. A strict dominance hierarchy, constant power struggles, a top dog earning its spot through violence. Biologist David Meek helped build that model early in his career. Then he spent decades studying actual wild packs and quietly took it apart. Wild wolves aren't rival strangers competing for a throne. They're families. A breeding pair and their offspring, sometimes an aunt or an older sibling who stuck around. The alpha wasn't a wolf that fought its way to the top. It was just a parent. That one correction changes how you're supposed to read every wolf fight after it. It's not a stranger clawing for status. It's closer to a family argument that happens to involve teeth. And once you look at wolf packs as families instead of gladiators, the restraint shows up everywhere, not just in Wolf 21. Wolves on Michigan's Isle Royale, tracked in the longest continuous predator-prey study on Earth, routinely cache extra meat instead of gorging on it. Multiple studied packs regurgitate food for pups who weren't anywhere near the kill. Injured or aging wolves too slow to keep up on a hunt have been documented still getting fed by their own packmates in multiple Yellowstone packs, tracked for years by the park's biologists. Yellowstone's own field records are full of wolves backing off mid-fight the instant a rival rolls onto its back, a surrender signal that works almost every time it's used. Wolf researchers studying packs far from Yellowstone, from Minnesota's forests to interior Alaska, have logged the same restraint, which rules out a single population just having an odd local habit. None of these are single weird outliers. They're the pattern, logged over and over, across different packs in different decades. So is that just wolves being strategic? Here's where it gets messier. Canine researcher Clive Wynne, who spent his career pushing back against overreading emotion into animal behavior, would tell you to slow down before calling any of this guilt. From his angle, restraint like Wolf 21's isn't necessarily moral at all. It might just be cold math written by evolution. A dead rival is a dead source of future pups, future hunters, future pack strength. Holding back could be pure genetic self-interest, wearing the costume of kindness. And honestly, that's not a small point. Maybe none of this is about feelings whatsoever, and we're the ones layering a human story on top of it, because a cold calculation is a far less satisfying explanation than a warm one. Which brings up a term worth actually understanding: ritualized aggression. Picture two people in a shouting match who both know, somewhere underneath the yelling, it's never actually going to turn into a swing. The posturing, the growling, the rolled back ears, most of it is theater, built specifically so nobody has to get hurt. It's the same reason two dogs at a park will do that stiff-legged, hackles-up standoff walk around each other for a full minute, and then, 9 times out of 10, just sit down. Ethologists have documented this same pattern across dozens of species, tracing back to Konrad Lorenz's early work on ritualized combat. The show of violence turns out to be the entire point, precisely because it replaces the real thing. If wolves narrated their own fights out loud, it might sound less like a death threat and more like two roommates arguing over dishes that both know is never going to end with anyone throwing one. But strategy alone doesn't explain everything researchers have logged. Mark Bekoff and Jessica Pierce spent years cataloging something they named wild justice. Documented cases across wolves, coyotes, and other social carnivores where individuals seem to track fairness during play and cooperation and get genuinely upset when the rules get broken. Not just annoyed, upset. That's a step past cold math. That's closer to something with an emotional temperature. There's more piling up. Doug Smith, who led the Yellowstone Wolf Project for over 2 decades after wolves were reintroduced to the park in 1995, noted packs whose howling changed for weeks after losing a member, a lower, sparser call that field crews learned to recognize before they even saw which wolf was missing. Radio collar data from multiple packs shows survivors traveling slower and hunting less for a stretch after a death in the family. None of it proves an inner emotional world on its own. Stacked together, though, it stops looking like coincidence. And here's the honest wall every researcher in this field eventually hits. You can watch a wolf's body forever and never once get inside its head. That's not really a wolf problem. It's every consciousness problem there's ever been. You can't even fully prove another human feels what they claim to feel. You just trust the resemblance. With a wolf, there's no shared language to close that gap, which is exactly why it mattered when, in 2012, a group of prominent neuroscientists gathered at Cambridge and signed something now called the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness. Their conclusion, in plain terms, the neural hardware for conscious experience and emotional states isn't uniquely human property. Mammals and birds have it too. It wasn't proof of wolf guilt specifically, but it was a formal, scientific admission that the machinery for a wolf to feel something mid-fight, genuine unease, not just a calculated pause, is sitting right there in its brain, fully wired and ready to fire. So go back to Wolf 21. Maybe the real answer isn't strategy or emotion. Maybe it's both, tangled together, the way it usually is in anything with a brain complicated enough to hold both at once. The genetic math is real. Every rival he spared was, in some tangled way, family. But McIntyre also documented something harder to explain away with math alone. This wolf, capable of ending any fight in Yellowstone whenever he wanted, chose gentleness in almost every other context too. Famously letting pups climb over him, tug his fur, and win pretend fights against him on purpose, tumbling over dramatically like he genuinely lost. Which is, frankly, adorable and slightly absurd for an animal that could take down a bull elk alone. A wolf running pure cold calculation wouldn't need to fake losing to a 6-week-old puppy that weighs about as much as a house cat. That looks a lot less like strategy and a lot more like something choosing not to use the power it has. Zoom out far enough, and this stops being a wolf story. Every decade, the line separating us from them gets redrawn a little further out. Empathy, fairness, restraint, grief. These used to be filed under uniquely human traits, right alongside language and tool use, before researchers found language-adjacent behavior and tool use scattered across a dozen other species too. From crows bending wire into hooks, to elephants comforting a distressed herd member with a trunk on the shoulder, to, apparently, an alpha wolf letting a puppy win. The list of things that supposedly make us special keeps getting shorter, not longer. And honestly, it should probably keep shrinking. 100 years ago, restraint after violence would have sounded like a purely human virtue. Now it's just Tuesday in a wolf pack. And that should sting a little, if you're being honest with yourself, because survival of the fittest gets used constantly by people, not wolves, as an excuse. For cutthroat decisions, for cruelty dressed up as pragmatism, for the idea that holding back is for suckers. Meanwhile, the actual, literal alpha wolf, the one animal evolution built specifically to win by force, spent his entire life demonstrating the opposite lesson. That having all the power in the room is exactly the moment restraint starts to mean something, not the moment it stops mattering. Wolf 21 died in 2004, old and mostly toothless, in the same territory he'd defended for years. Yellowstone's own field notes describe him lying down peacefully near his family, not fighting, not fleeing, just done. No dramatic final battle, no last stand. Just an old wolf, surrounded by pups he'd let win 1,000 fake fights, finally allowed to lose one for real. Wolves are still built to kill without hesitation. That part was never wrong. What's wrong is assuming that's the only thing they're built for.